with Margie Yang. She's the chairman of the esquel Group, which is the #1 exporter from China of men's cotton shirts, which is to say probably the largest in the world. The company has really, really been a leader in Asia and, in fact, in the world in terms of taking sustainability very seriously throughout the whole process. Tell me a little bit about that, Margie. Why? Why did you, in the textile industry, which is historically one of the most polluting industries, decide that you were going to do this?
I guess I'm going to have to disclose well, I won't disclose my exact age, but when I tell you the reason, you'll probably be able to guess my age. Because when I was going to university, it was the time of Club of Rome and Limits to Growth and that era. So I came back to Hong Kong, and when I got into the business, I had that.
Your father had started the business, correct? And
yes, well, when I came back to Hong Kong, the company has not been started yet. But anyway, so that was in my mind. And then very early on, one day I was in a dyeing factory. It was one of our smaller dyeing factories. And I asked, I heard that the fish in a pond nearby had died. And when I asked them why, and they said, hello, we are in the textile business. And I thought, that's strange. So I went home and asked my father, who is a textile chemist. And he said, that is not necessarily so. And that's sort of like the start of the journey to take the rest of the people along this journey to use knowledge to offset this myth that if you're in the textile business, you have to be polluting.
Is that specifically being in Asia, is that statement a more controversial statement than it might be in Western Europe, for example?
I really don't think so. Recently, I read the book Empire of the Cotton, and then I realized that in the cotton and the cotton industry has a history of being a very early entry industry in all countries, very important part of trade, but it also had, because of the early adoption of chemistry very successfully, had a very bad reputation in pollution. Mm. So this is a worldwide problem, and I think before everybody just assumed that. I used to go to Basel, and then I heard from my friends there, of course, the river used to turn into fashion colors as well.
And now?
It seems that wherever the fashion business goes, rivers have to turn into different colors, which definitely it does not have to be like that.
So tell me, Margie, a little bit about some of the specific things that the company has done to reduce. I have here, tell me if I'm wrong, that you reduced your own energy consumption by 43% between 2005 and 2014, and water use by 57%, water being an enormous input for you. Yes. How did you do it?
So, number one, I did not do it. And the reason I have to tell you that is I realized very early on that there was no way I was going to be able to do very much because, unlike my father, I studied mathematics, therefore didn't know anything, didn't know how to do anything. So I figured that I'm going to have to rely on other people. So I decided that what I need to do is to convince the people in the company that this is important to them, and then let them find a way of doing it. And so that's how I did it, by convincing others that this is important. And then as I did it, it was really nice to see more and more people going out and making an even more convincing argument than I am.
Well, one thing you said when we spoke earlier is that sort of creating these goals from the top is not really successful, that that creating a sustainable culture is about the little things, not about the big things.
Because I feel very strong that if you're really going to do this, you have to adopt it as a way of life for everyone.
And that means the sort of low-level workers as well, right? I mean, you have 58,000 employees.
Yes. And I mean, we can say we're going to do something top down. But then if everybody goes home and they do not, everybody leaves the faucets in the, let's say the dormitories even. Let's not even go to individuals' home. Leaky faucets, air-conditioned rooms with broken windows, or they don't even close the doors, then it defeats the purpose. So on the one hand, we may be able to come on a stage like this and share with everybody and say, we adopted these technologies or are doing something very impressive. But in the back, we are probably wasting as much energy or water that we save. So to do this, you have to let people feel that they want to do it. Everybody feels that there's... Now, I don't try to push to a point where... And the reason I say this is I personally love flowers. Everywhere I go, I like to see flowers. I'm sure you do too. Anyway, my niece, my sister's oldest daughter, is an environmental major. So over the summer, I gave her a job and to do an audit. One of the things she said is, I must give up all cut flowers.
The audit was of the company, or
as well as
your home?
Home. And of course, it included my aunt has a very bad habit of having fresh flowers at dinner tables and office rooms. So I had a chat with her and I said, you know, cut me some slack here. And so if I'm really going to have to do, and I feel the same for everybody else, if we go and say, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, you cannot do this, different people may have different priority. So I think if we let people adopt, because I told my niece, I said, if you get that strict, people will shy away from the whole concept of sustainability.
So are you saying you didn't get rid of the flowers? We're going to open up for questions in just 1 second. I want to bring up a really interesting aspect of Margie's work with esquel, which is that they have started their own environmental conference called the Integral Conversation, and that's to bring in other companies all around Asia into this sustainability discussion, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, we had this very unique opportunity. We were, because of our reputation, we were given, we bought a state-owned enterprise in Guilin. 40 years ago, Deng Xiaoping visited Guilin. Guilin is one of the most beautiful cities in China. If you haven't been there, it's sort of like Avatar, and it is mountains coming out of just flat land, and it's beautiful and has a wealth of history. Anyway, so Guilin has, Deng Xiaoping went there and said, you cannot pollute the environment. You must not destroy this beauty. Otherwise, even if in the name of development, otherwise you will not be able to, you will regret this for generations. So they've always been very careful about having industry in Guilin. And we, because of our reputation, were allowed to take over this textile company and also expand. Now, we were given this opportunity to take 130 acres of land where we intend to put a garden, because we're doing a lot of research in natural dyes, so we'd like to move the plants that are, have been used. And this involves not just preserving the environment, biodiversity, but also the related cultural aspect of dyeing, because color is very much related to civilization. So on this 130 acres, we have an opportunity to shock people a little. We hope to be able to manufacture in a beautiful environment. Just try to push the limits on people's imagination. Why do people like us who work in industry, why do we have to accept that because don't forget, if industry is polluting, the people working there are the first to breathe in the air.
Right, they experience it themselves. So the idea is this is sort of a demonstration, right? That
Yes.
things could be different. I want to make time for just one question. I'm sorry, our time has really flown here. Is there anyone? Okay, in that case. I don't see anyone. I'll continue. So who comes to this event? And this is in November, is that right, of this year?
This year we're having it in November. We started last year, and what we did was we invited people, like-minded people. We work with NGOs like NRDC, Institute of Public Monitoring of IPE. We invited people from companies like Patagonia, like-minded people who get together just to explore Sustainable Development Model 2.0. And what we'd like to do is just to share ideas about how there could be an alternative way, because there are a lot of myths and in these traditional industries, simply because they've been around for a long time.
Right.
That's why they have more myths. And we just want to break out, just have people enjoy seeing an alternative way of doing things, and hopefully more people will adopt these new ways, which are totally possible.
And it's inspiring to hear that, particularly coming out of an industry like yours, that there's someone kind of setting the precedent. So,
well, because I've been in this industry for a long time, and never have I had seen the opportunity to apply what we learn, knowledge, to this industry. In Gaoming alone, we have 35,000 engineers running around. This is a luxury nobody had before. So
it's fantastic. Well, thank you so very much for being with us.
thank you.